Hi, everyone. We're here to talk about the surging demand for data clean rooms. Let's start by describing a data clean room. In a few words, could you describe a data clean room and its capabilities?
Who wants to take it? I can start. First of all, we are running a little over time, so thanks for bearing with us. We'll try and maybe condense the panel by 5 minutes or so that we have enough time for lunch later on. But coming back to the topic at hand, so a data clean room really effectively, at its heart, is an environment that allows you to combine data from various organizations, various data teams, put them together in a secure way, and then run analytics on it to gain insights. Depending on the industry that you're working in, so for example, in the ad tech space, I think data clean room exists as a category and has emerged as a very strong category. Everyone from brands and publishers are looking at incorporating data clean rooms for their own advertising and measurement use cases. But the same can apply to other industries as well. But essentially, secure and governed way for collaboration. If you have a perspective, Abhishek.
Yeah, I'd just like to add a bit to that, like maybe start from a bit of a history here. The word clean rooms is actually taken in more from like the world of scientific experiments, where scientists used to carry out experiments, and they used to believe in creating a environment which is a clean room, which is not any way related to the world of data, where they want to carry out the experiments in a very impurities-free, dust-free environment, and this sanitized environment, sterilized environment, and this as a concept was taken into the world of data, where the owners of the data sets or warehouses, they want to host their own data sets in an environment where they don't allow commingling of data from any other parties, where they exchange it in a value based on data about.
Yeah, and I would say the evolution on that is where that collaborative analytics is possible without revealing or exposing any sensitive or personal information in the process, yet allow the various parties to extract the insight and the value that they need from that data in sort of a safer way compared to traditional approaches of doing data sharing or collaborative analytics.
So going beyond traditional mechanisms of anonymizing or hashing data before you share it.
Yeah, I think that's a key point, right? So traditional mechanisms of doing like data masking, data tokenization, scrambling of sensitive data elements, that's effectively taken utility out of the data. So you no longer have the ability to do fuzzy matching, proximity matching, date math, entity resolution, those things that are critically important. And so, data clean rooms are an answer to sort of fixing that problem as well.
So to your point, what distinguishes a data clean room from these other privacy approaches?
I'll just take it. So as of today, the world of the data clean rooms as a concept is, we see a lot of news and noise, especially from the ad tech world. Comparing this with any other industries, where we see most of the usage in the ad tech space, where we see that the data clean rooms and how it is different from confidential computing. The data clean rooms still work on the principles of having software-backed confidentiality in the exchange of data, whereas confidential computing environments are also going beyond the layer of software, going beyond the application layer, working on the basis of a more fundamental hardware-driven approach, where data clean rooms probably will evolve into as well.
So essentially,
and these concepts can coexist as well, right? That they do not need to be mutually exclusive.
So what you're saying is, in the absence of confidential computing, basically you're relying on a trusted third party to enforce your policies and governance that you need, ensure that the data is protected. But with confidential computing, maybe there is a way to take this one step further.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about how confidential computing and data clean rooms can be used to solve specific business problems. What are some of the most compelling use cases you've seen?
Do you want to start with the ad?
Yeah. So again, because most of the usage is in the ad tech space as we speak, right? The world of ad tech is actually very, very, very fragmented. there are different parties involved in an exchange of values with data. There are publishers who are publishing content. There are advertisers who are trying to get spaces into the publishers' whole real estate. And then there'll be facilitators. I work as a product manager in one of these facilitating companies called Managed Media Service Providers, where they kind of connect the dots between different entities, but without really being able to collaborate data across different business entities freely with a trust-first system. Really cannot ensure advertisers can show the right ads to the potential people who will be interested in buying the products. And consumers will also not be able to see products which they might be interested in. So that's a space where we see a lot of value exchange happening with data, and in a trust-first system with data clean rooms as a first-class citizen in the exchange.
Yeah, and just some other examples that I can give. And I know a lot of these use cases have been mentioned multiple times this morning because they are sort of the ones that come to mind first. So what I'll try to do is just expand on some of what was mentioned and maybe just call out some specific sub-examples as to why data clean rooms would be a particularly good approach for solving for certain problems. So if you take the example of anti-fraud in financial services, which has been mentioned multiple times already today, where I think confidential computing and data clean rooms can be particularly helpful is in use cases where a particular type of fraud, because there's very many different flavors of fraud, first party, third party, et cetera, in terms of who the perpetrator is, who the victim is. So one example where it would be helpful is where traditional approaches have not been very effective at identifying the fraudulent activity. So for example, you take something like credit card fraud, like looking for unauthorized credit card transactions. That's a very mature discipline. Like Fair Isaac and SAS have been working on that for decades. I think they have a pretty good handle on pretty, reliably be able to predict whether a credit card transaction is fraud. On the other hand, there's other types of fraud like scam activity, where you have a bank customer that has been duped by someone else into sending a payment to a third party because they just don't understand that they're being socially engineered and manipulated. To the bank, that's a particularly difficult thing to detect because you are dealing with your customer. Your customer is authorizing you to send the payment. So everything checks out in terms of authentication, device risk, phone number risk. They are your customer. They're behaving like your customer. However, they are sending a payment to someone that they should not be sending a payment to. So where data clean rooms could be helpful is where banks can pull together their information related to counterparty accounts, sort of to what account are these funds being sent to, and has anybody identified that destination account as being suspicious or problematic? Banks have a lot of difficulty doing that today, just analyzing the data that they have inherent within their own organization. So I think where there's like a step change, where there's a need for a step change in the ability to detect or predict something, is where this concept will be the most useful.
One thing I would like to add is, and perhaps we haven't spoken about this in too much detail earlier, is around insurance as well. Insurance carriers enabling them to be able to share data with each other to identify double dipping or fraudulent claims without having to rely on their individual information. They need to be able to pool their data sets together to be able to identify any sorts of suspicious claims.
Yeah, and one other similar example along the same vein, just trying to touch on some of these niche use cases where this would be particularly powerful, is certain types of lending activity in the credit world are also susceptible to double dipping. So otherwise known as loan stacking or duplicate trade financing activity, where the same actor will literally finance the same asset or the same shipment multiple times in short succession, and the credit bureau databases and other databases aren't real time enough for institutions to be able to pick up on that. So a data clean room environment will allow them to share what parties have entered into a loan arrangement on what asset down to the last, let's say, 2 minutes. And you'd be in a much better position to detect that something unusual is going on.
The final thought that I would add there is, as a concept, if you speak to someone in the advertising and marketing space, they understand data clean rooms, because data clean rooms in various flavors have existed for a few years, but we're seeing an explosion now. In other industries, people understand secure collaboration, but the category of a data clean room, I'm not sure has been established yet. One, for example, I was at a healthcare event, and we did just an informal survey of participants about if they understood what data clean rooms were. And I think 70 people out of like 80 people or so that we spoke with said no. But they do understand secure multi-party collaboration. And when you describe that, it clicks. Like, okay, this is what we can do. This is how it can help us. But data clean room as a concept, as a category, does not quite exist in other spaces. So just another perspective on when we talk about clean room demand, there are nuances depending on which industry you're speaking about.
So to your point, data clean rooms have been around for a while. What do you think is driving their expansion now?
Well, one reason in the advertising and marketing space, perhaps, is the deprecation of cookies, right? I'm sure Abhishek can speak at length about that.
One is the advertising industry relies heavily on the usage of browser cookies to identify users. They understand the users from a online behavioral perspective, what their interests are and all. The thing is, with different legislations ushering in, like newer and newer legislations coming in, we see that companies mostly who are into the buying space of programmatic media, they are facing this challenge of how to really understand what is the interest of user. And that all happens if they are allowed freely to access data pertaining to a particular user, right? And that accuracy, the level of accuracy in building such a behavioral modeling algorithms is kind of high, increased, enhanced with the application of data clean rooms. That's why we see a lot of usage in the ad tech today, and it's more of enforcement, plus also not being able to do things otherwise, like the compulsiveness and the enforcing both kind of play a role kind of the in the surging demand of data clean rooms in the ad tech space.
And what I'll add to that, a couple of other drivers that we've seen have to do with the regulatory environment. So we have seen increasing examples where privacy regulators or governments are sponsoring like innovation challenges or fintech challenges involving the use of privacy enhancing technologies. There was one between the US and the UK, which recently wrapped up. And one of the use cases was collaborative data sharing amongst institutions to predict, one was illicit payments and the other was to better predict the transmission of a pandemic, right? And so just regulators coming forward and encouraging organizations to innovate using this technology is increasing the awareness. And then I would say the other thing is, in addition to the privacy regulators becoming more active and levying enforcement actions, some of the industry-specific regulators we're starting to see are starting to take action. Like, for example, the bank regulators are looking at how are financial institutions managing the customer data that they share with third parties, whether it's business partners, alliance partners, vendors, managed services providers. And they are citing them for, potentially not doing enough to protect that data, ensure that data minimization principles are being used, that the data is only being used for the purposes for which it's intended, and that it's not being held on to longer than it needs to be to satisfy a certain business purpose. So these are challenges that exist when you're sharing data in clear text format with a third party. Like a zero trust data clean room environment will address virtually all of those concerns.
So if I'm an organization that's evaluating the need for a data clean room, where should I start?
Let me talk about it from the perspective of key capabilities that you would want, right? So security, of course, security along with privacy is one key capability that you need. So we really need to go beyond institutional trust to programmatic or technologically assured trust, not having to rely on a piece of paper. So this is something that organizations should take into account when they're evaluating data cleanroom technologies, because again, data cleanroom technologies come in various flavors, with confidential computing, without confidential computing. Richness of the insights that you can get. A lot of the existing work, especially in advertising and marketing that's been happening, has relied on identifiers or cookies or things like hashed emails. So in some sense, you're very limited in the kinds of analysis that you can do if you want to keep everything else encrypted. You can only join data sets together, but not do anything more than them if you want all the other columns and fields to remain protected. But I feel this has also limited the insights that the market has been able to draw out of data cleanrooms as a result in advertising and marketing. Can we go beyond that? Can you do rich big data analytics? Can you run models? And finally, scalability. How scalable is this? Can I deploy this do I have to deploy this within my environment? Can I use this as a scalable service on the cloud? Can this support large amounts of data in a performant way? So security, functionality, and performance would be three areas around which organizations should base their assessment of data cleanrooms.
Yeah, I mean, just adding again, whatever you said, like it's already in the first principle approach, like how organizations should evaluate whether they should really start using data clean rooms or think of it seriously or not. The one additional angle that I wanted to bring in here is something that you get off the shelf using a data clean room, right? A lot of these organizations, because in the ad tech space also, you have to deal with lots of different parties in kind of exchanging data to kind of build a use case which is specifically addressing a consumer's need. You need to make sure a lot of these offerings of sophisticated analytics you are talking about, right? Because of the interest of privacy, you lose out a lot in terms of what you really can offer in terms of sophistication in the level of analytics that you build. But with enhanced offerings in data clean rooms, like making sure a lot of these sophisticated ML algorithms or generative AI, so to speak, as well, we can really apply or within the realms of privacy is something that if I need as an organization to really build use cases focused towards consumers' needs, I'd probably rank data clean rooms usage at a higher level.
I would say another thing that companies can do is to sort of, take an inventory of all the, the sort of data workloads that they have, all of the data sets that they possess internally, where there is a potential need to collaborate with other parties or with other parts of the organization and sort of attempt to risk rank those in terms of the risk involved in that data being inappropriately accessed or inappropriately used for the wrong purpose, and using that to prioritize which use cases, which business processes are most beneficial to move into a data clean room type of arrangement.
So to wrap up the panel, please give us your one-sentence prediction for the evolution of data clean rooms. You want to go first, Frank?
My prediction is that over the coming, years, it would become more of a standard approach for, doing collaborative data analytics, given the increasing risk, involved in data breaches, increasing regulatory posture, increasing data localization requirements, things like that. So, my prediction is, I think someone mentioned it earlier today, like have it be the rule rather than the exception when you're engaging in these sort of high stakes data exchange type of scenarios.
Actually, my belief is a bit two-pronged here. So that these different organizations like build data warehouses, data lakes to organize that data, and then struggle with applying data governance rules and principles on top of that. The thing is, significant benefit, as I said earlier as well, can come off the shelf if we really start using data clean rooms. a lot of the data governance aspects automatically get addressed if you start using data clean rooms. So the first belief that I have around is like, data clean rooms, data warehouses and data lakes become de facto data clean rooms going ahead. Something connected to what Vika said earlier as well. Computing becomes confidential as a de facto, right? So this is something I started believing of late. The second belief is obviously definitely very much connected to what this whole session is about today, like the whole summit is about today. Data clean rooms will definitely embrace higher hardware connected layers and principles going ahead. And it will not be just limited within the boundaries of software anymore. And Opaque is probably the pioneer in this space. Yep.
Thank you. I see data clean rooms as inevitable as a way to future-proof against emerging and existing privacy regulations as well. Like GDPR was the first step. 5 different states in the US now have existing or emerging laws around privacy. We heard from Xochitl around laws and regulations coming out of India and other countries in Asia. How do you build a system that can comply with competing jurisdictions and different laws and requirements and regulations that come up with it without having to architect things differently? Is that even possible? And to do that, you have to, like you pointed out, Abhishek, build your systems from a first principles approach, build in privacy from a technologically assured perspective by default. So from that perspective, from a regulatory and compliance perspective, I see this as a future-proofing technology and something that will become inevitable for organizations to be able to collaborate.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.